Doing?
Yes, I'm not too
Yeah,
bad,
yeah.
blacks.
How you doing? Yeah. So, what we talking about today, H?
Well, it's a little bit of an extension on the no blacks, no dogs, no Irish, because
Yeah.
we want to get to the source of where that come from. Where
Okay.
that come from.
So, when I say to the source, as in where the so who started it?
Well, it dates back some 350 years or so back to the crown, the British crown, right? And it was nothing to do with racism, because there were many people of color. It was nothing to do with racism. It was due to the British crown from Queen Elizabeth I, because she was a Protestant. She was a Protestant queen who brutalized the Irish, right? So there's many instances with the Irish where they had the potato family, where many of them died at sea trying to escape to the Americas and to other countries in Europe. But what people don't know is that the best part of them, there was white Irish, yes, but the majority of them was black people, black Irish.
So, Irish was black.
Well, most countries across the continent was black, even the people on the thrones, because you have to look at it. That you have to look at it that the Moors dominated for 700 years. Then the last people of color that dominated, that only ended at the end of World War One, 1918, which was the Ottoman Empire. So you have to go through, look at all the European crowns where there's either princes, because Shakespeare wasn't joking when he's talking about Prince Othello, right? The person who changed the King James version, what we know was King James the First of England, right? Who changed it into so that people, normal people, other than popes and royalty, could read the Latin, because he was a black man and he was a Hebrew. He knew
King James was black.
King James was black, right? You can go on your internet, any pictures you see of King James and all them times, Louis the 14th, where they have them black wigs and that. It's not black wigs. There were black people. There were black kings and black princes and princesses, right? King James was a black man. He had a son, King Charles the First.
So the saying, no dogs, no blacks, no Irish.
Yes, it stems from them period of time.
So what you're saying, because the Irishman at that time was a black man, to say.
No. The majority of Europe was.
Yeah.
But then what I do is, like, in the last show we had the no blacks, no dogs, no Irish, and I told you all about a program called Roots. But when that came out, yes, it hurt man like me. But then later on, now there was many stories about Alex Haley, the author of that program, where he made a whole heap of money, and then they were saying that his it didn't match up. The times of his ancestors, where he said they come from, that period of time, where they traveled to, everything didn't match up. So okay, right? But what I'm telling you today, you can all go and check up yourself on a touch of a button, because I know you don't like to listen for too long. The focus is not there if I'm reading to you. So I'm going to kick in today by telling you what you could just go and watch in your own time, in your own house, on the internet, on YouTube.
I'll find out. So read down, let them know what I want. Yeah?
So for today's topic, I'm going to adopt a different approach. The Lord our God called us a stiff-necked people. We still are stubborn and ignorant. We are lazy. We refuse to learn, research, or read. So I am not going to read to you. Instead, I am going to recommend a few topics you can watch in your own time, in your own home, at your own pleasure. The majority of you will have some form of internet on your TVs, mobiles, laptops, etc. It may shock some of you, it may shake you out of your boots, but it is still a truth, undeniably bomb-proof. And once you watch it, everything will begin to make sense to you. I recommend the following for you to watch on YouTube. Number one is a program called Whence the Black Irish of Jamaica. Whence, you spell that W-H-E-N-S-E. Whence the Black Irish of Jamaica. It's only a 43-minute documentary. B is another show you can watch called Black Oliver Cromwell and the Black Irish People He Deported. That documentary is 45 minutes. So B is Black Oliver Cromwell and the Black Oliver Cromwell and the Black Irish People He Deported. Show C, the so-called Black Irish slaves that brought to Jamaica, Barbados. That show lasts 39 minutes. Program D, the Black Irish of Jamaica, which lasts 1 hour 20 minutes. Program E, the Black Irish from Jamaica and the slave trade. This lasts 2 hours and 38 minutes. Program F, the Black Irish Migration and Diaspora to the Americas, Part 1, lasts 59 minutes. And lastly, the Black Irish Diaspora, Undeniable Proof, Part 2, lasts 2 hours and 35 minutes. I've recommended seven of these programs, which there are hundreds of historical truths out there which we are unaware of because we will not read. Yet the whole world knows these truths. The whole world knows we are ignorant, stubborn, and that we refuse to read or learn. The whole world will never allow us to succeed or achieve our goals in life because we are so gullible. The world will not allow you to prosper when we don't even know who we are. The 7 I've recommended, I've seen A, B, and C. I have not seen the other 4, but I will get round to watching them. But I'm fortunate as I already have a good insight in regards to historical truths and lies. For instance, when the TV series Roots aired in the 1970s, it hurt. But the show was marred by a media and tabloid stories saying the author Alex Haley's story of his ancestors never tied in with this event or that event, this era or that era. But whenever I tell you, read you, or bring to your attention is checked, double checked, certified, historical, raw to the bone truth. That's unlike Alex Haley's book. Each and every one of you individually, by the touch of a button, can check to verify on the internet or YouTube. It's the era, the age we live in, 2022. The devil can't hide. Stop living the life of a fool. Once you have watched my recommendations, you will, I guarantee, want to know more. You will begin to research and read diligently out of sheer shock. But researching will bring you relief because you will begin to know yourself and your ancestors. And in your seeking this knowledge, it will empower you, give you a surety and confidence in your own ability to think more positively about your life and your family's life. The old adage says knowledge is power, but knowledge also opens the door to wisdom. Religion or history makes no difference. What you are about to discover when you watch what I have recommended will let you know it is the exact tactic they did when it came to religion over and over again. And you will realize everything is possible anywhere in the world as long as there is a king, an emperor, a president, or a government. In 1995, if I was to say to you that I was going to give you £10, but I intend to pay you in £2 coins, you would have looked at me like I was mad. Yet 3 years later, the government made it happen, and in 1998, they introduced the £2 coin. When I was in primary school, there was such a thing as a pound note, a 2.5 pence coin and a half-pence coin. The government made them happen, and then the government made them disappear. Today in 2022, there is no such thing as a £3 or a £4 coin. There is also no such thing as a £2.25 coin or a £3.75 coin. But if the government wish to do so, for whatever the reason, they can and will make it happen. This is precisely what happened in today's topic, and has happened throughout history, relentlessly for the last 2,500 to 2,800 years, and is still relevant today in 2022. If we were a people who liked to read, we would know quite a lot of what has happened, especially the last 500 to 600 years. They are biblical prophecy. This prophetic warning comes in Job chapter 9 verse 24. The earth is given unto the hand of the wicked. He covereth the faces of the judges thereof. If not, where and who is he? The explanation of that prophecy tells us of an era to come where three things will take place at the same time. First, the world will be under the control of unrighteous, wicked people. Second, there will be major identity theft. To such a degree, we will see but not recognize in time that identity theft even took place. And third, a small number of us will have doubts, will ask where or how, or even ask who is these imposters.
So that's what he said. That's predicted in the Bible.
Yes.
The Bible is telling you that.
Yes, because throughout the last 600 years, especially, we've seen it. Because I think later on, I'm going to show that there was a man called who's supposed to be the most world famous painter up in Rome. Michelangelo. He painted the Sistine Chapel, and then you see on churches they've got all paintings and everything. This is following this man. And then also at the time, who we look at pictures now as Jesus. Right. Well, this is the person that's supposed to model that picture is one of the future Pope's son. So that is that same prophecy that they cover up their faces. Right. It's identity theft, because really the people, number one, you shouldn't have no pictures of Jesus anyway. That's blasphemous. Right. But then they've covered him to make him look like something completely different. Right. So yeah.
Yeah. Next period.
Right. Just keep in mind, all that glitters is not gold. The same YouTube the world can use, or internet, to learn Christopher Columbus discovered the West Indies and the Americas in the 1490s is the same way on YouTube or the internet the world can use to let you know 900 years before Columbus stepped on the island of Jamaica, way before the arrival of the Maroons, there were a people already in existence for goodness knows how long before, called the Arawak or the Taino. Taino were also in the Americas. As for the Americas, your YouTube and internet will tell you from Canada coming right down into the Americas, stretching as far back as 72,000 years ago, there were black peoples resident on all these lands, highly sophisticated in construction and farming, amongst a host of other skills. And besides, didn't they teach our children in schools that they have Viking artifacts from 1,000 years ago, implying from Newfoundland the Vikings entered North America? So which nonsense do we believe? Christopher Columbus 526 years ago, or the Vikings 500 years earlier? Neither is the answer. I could go on and on and on to prove to you all of these facts, but they would have to be for other shows because the facts are so numerous. Have you ever asked yourself why in Canada they have many who use French as a primary language? Have you ever asked yourself why they have a section named Nova Scotia? Why their primary language is English? Have you asked yourself why in places such as Mexico they have pyramids older than the pyramids in Egypt? Have you asked yourselves, has America always been called America? Have you even heard of the Amarucans? Have you heard of the Amarucans?
So who are the Amarucans?
Amarucans, like I just said, there's a nation of people. Let me just get the pronunciation correct. Because this, you're going back 72,000 years, right? Up from north up into Canada, all the way down. Eventually, they settled in New York.
So when we get scripts on these people 72,000 years, have we got any physical evidence to show like script from these times?
Well, I haven't, but there's evidence out there because there's evidence out there because it's these people that I can't really call it Inikos. I think they call it Inikos, right? They're the first, and it was a confederation of tribes. Confederation. These man them built because the west of America, right? The water's harsh.
Yeah. So read the next page for them.
Right. Okay. You see, the problem I have with school curriculums is they are the best at playing hide and seek with our children's intelligence, telling them a trailer load of lies blended with some watered down truths. I never allowed them to teach me anything that just couldn't make no sense to me. Religion is much the same. I believe in our Creator. I believe in the creation. I believe every word of the Holy Scriptures. I believe every word of the Bible, the KJV. I do not believe most school curriculum regarding history. I do not believe a word of any teacher or preacher who accepts a wage or a salary to teach or preach the word of the true living God, the Most High. There is no prophet, no disciple, no apostle who received a wage. A true teacher or preacher would never deviate from what is written. It is Holy Scripture. Every word coming from his mouth must be found inside of those scriptures. He will teach or preach only what is written. He will not give you his own personal opinion, just the raw scripture. These holy scriptures, as well as many missing books, such as the book of Adam, the book of Enoch, Sirach, Tobit, Esdras, Baruch, Jubilees, Jasher, the Wisdom of Solomon, the Maccabees, Ecclesiasticus, which is also Sirach, and many more were given to us for our learning and understanding by the Most High. In fact, not only were the Holy Scriptures given to mankind many thousands of years ago, they were here thousands of years before any of these religions you can name that is in existence today on earth. Better still, the faith we are supposed to follow was formed, created, established by our Lord before creation, which is holiness. Be holy, for I, your God, am holy. Hence the holy prophets. Not all of these religions. Finally, school curriculum, don't mind telling your children that at one point in time there was a catastrophe that took place, because there was a time when from the Americas to Africa, the Middle East to China, and to Australia, all these places were one giant landmass. with no seas or oceans separating them, which is another truth. But what I've found to be intriguing for some while is the 40 years the prophet Moses and the multitudes wandered in the desert before reaching the promised land. We know Moses never entered, but the Most High allowed him to see it. It was Joshua who led the people into that land, and distributed it amongst the tribes. We know in today's world, Egypt, where the multitudes fled from with Moses, sits next door to Israel. Pishon, Gihon, Tigris, and Euphrates are the 4 rivers mentioned that were outside of Eden when Adam and Eve departed the garden. 3 of the 4 rivers tie in with the description going eastward from Eden, but one of them does not. I remember watching a documentary some 15 to 20 years ago, which showed or asked the question if the promised land was in the Americas, because it was the only place in the world that fitted perfectly as the scriptures describe the 4 rivers eastwards of Eden. They have that desert terrain in Texas. They had a Euphrates as well as 3 other rivers as described. They have pyramids and monuments older than in Egypt. They have the eye and an Egyptian obelisk on the American dollar. And Noah told his son Japheth that he will dwell in the tents of his favorite son Shem. But God put a veil over Japheth's eyes, and Revelations tells us in the last days there will be Jews that claim they are Jews, but are liars. America has been run by Jews for the last 100 years. The Bible could be referring to either America or Israel today, but it's America. America has got the rivers that fits perfectly with the 4 riverheads that are described in Scripture when Adam and Eve departed the Garden of Eden. If the catastrophe never took place and the earth or landmass was put back together, it would then place the South as a place containing today's African continent, as well as northeastern Africa, Egypt, Israel, Syria, Jordan, Iraq, Iran, Saudi Arabia, all Middle East. Europe would be in the north. The Americas would be in the west. Could it be viable that Moses leading the multitudes out of Egypt in the south to the Americas way out west on land be one reason as to why they wandered 40 years? Possibly. I wish I knew what that documentary was called to view it again, but it is reasonable. It is a reasonable possibility when you consider not even a tortoise would take 40 years to go from Egypt to Israel today. They say the Earth's age is four point. Well, I just come to a point there because I remembered about 15, 20 years ago, I watched a documentary. Now I know the scripture, and the scripture says when Moses brought the people out of captivity in Egypt, right? Sorry, what am I talking? Not Moses. Right, when Adam and Eve departed the Garden of Eden, the scriptures describe 4 riverheads. Right now, the scriptures describe 3 of them, fine, but 1 of them don't make no sense. But the documentary I watched 15, 20 years ago, now America, in the Americas, not say America, the Americas is the only place in the world that fits that description perfectly. Okay. When you have to add on to that the Americans have that eye on the dollar. They have an Egyptian obelisk as well. They have so many secrets going on. Plus they have pyramids older than there are in the Egypt that we know. And they have monuments in all the Americas. And they've got the desert terrain as well. So maybe that makes sense, right? Because look where Egypt and Israel are next door to each other. wandering in the desert 40 years. It makes sense because I've explained to the people that the schools don't mind telling you that there was a land catastrophe. In them, before that catastrophe, you could walk from the Middle East, Africa to America, Australia. Right. So then, if it took them 40 years, is it really Egypt and Israel, or is it like the four rivers in the Americas? Right. It's quite possible, but I don't know. I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
Right. So
you're just throwing it out there.
yes, yeah. So that's a reasonable possibility.
Yeah, when you
Right.
consider,
They say the Earth's age is 4.543 billion years. They say 200 million years ago, the Earth was one supercontinent, or one landmass, called Pangaea, spelled Pangaea. There were no humans on Earth at this time, but other life species were in existence, including dinosaurs. They say humans were first on Earth around 5 to 7 million years ago, making stone tools 2.5 million years ago. But the oldest human fossils they have are from 300,000 years ago. 2 Peter chapter 3 verse 8 says, "But beloved, be not ignorant of this one thing, that one day is with the Lord as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as one day." So all this can still mathematically make sense to me.
Yeah. One way or the other.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right? So let us see some covering points. At the start, I've showed you 7 things to watch. So I'm going to give you some clues now as to what you'll be looking for. Right? Now, at the time, you must bear in mind that Oliver Cromwell was the Lord Protector in England, in Britain, from the year 655. Sorry, 653 to 658 for 5 years. 2 years after he became Lord Protector, was at his bequest that the British went over to the West Indies, defeated the Spanish, and took over the islands, in particularly Jamaica, in the year 1655. Now, if you Google Oliver Cromwell, any description you get of, you're going to get of Oliver Cromwell, he was a man of colour. They say that he had sallow skin, which if you look that up in the 1828 dictionary of the time, the Webster Dictionary, well, that it means he was a man of yellow skin, yellow tan skin, right? Any description you look up for Oliver Cromwell, so he was a man of colour. Now, the king he beheaded to become Lord Protector was Charles I. Charles I, and what you have to bear in mind, this was not about racism, because there were black people all over Europe, in every country, right? So this was not about racism, right? It was strictly about Protestants and Catholic. Before Cromwell took charge of to become Lord Protector, he beheaded King Charles I, because Charles I wanted to return Britain to a Catholic country, right? And so they executed him, and William Cromwell took over. When Cromwell died, they put Charles II on the throne, who was Bonnie Prince Charlie. Now there were wars going on all over Britain, in France and everywhere, because those that were supportive of Charles I and his son Charles II, or Bonnie Prince Charlie, what you need to understand what was going on around the world, we called them in schools the Jacobites. But they're not the Jacobites, they are the Jacobites, because the King James I translated the Latin Bible so that the whole of Britain could read it in 611, he was a black king, and he knew he was a Hebrew, right? So he wanted it translated so that ordinary folk, rather than royalty or priests or monks, could read, because before that the Bible, the holy books were written in Latin. So when James the First died, he was a Protestant king, but his son Charles the First wanted to turn the British throne back to being Catholic, and they chopped his head off. So his son Charles II, after Cromwell died, they put him back on the throne. But Charles II played the game. He was a Protestant king, but at heart he was still a Catholic, and he remained so. And on his deathbed, he changed from a Protestant king back to Catholicism. So what I've asked you to recommended for you to watch, it is nothing to do with racism. It is all to do with Catholic Protestants, because in them days, starting from Queen Elizabeth I, right the way down to Cromwell, is that he went all over Britain, and especially Ireland, right? And if he was Catholic, they got slaughtered. And just bear this one thing in mind. Jacob had 12 sons. Joseph was like a prince in Egypt, and he called his father and his brothers to Egypt. And with Joseph and his 11 brothers settling in Egypt and the places around Egypt, like Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, and Jordan and Palestine, just with 12 brothers. Sometime after Joseph had died, them 12 brothers had so many children, they overflooded Egypt, Syria, Lebanon, Israel, or Palestine, and Jordan. All that area was flooded from just 12 brothers and their children and their seed. So when you watch this, you're going to see that Oliver Cromwell deported, and they used to deport them first to Barbados, onto Jamaica, and then to work as slaves, and then the best portion of them went to the Americas, right? That's what you're going to discover. You're going to discover this, right? Now, Oliver Cromwell, between 500,000 to 600,000 men and women that was not slaughtered, they were sent to Barbados and Jamaica as slaves, and then the greater portion went on to the Americas. And the other thing that you're going to have to look at is because the Irish, in the Caribbean, we tend to have British names because Britain was England, Ireland, Scotland, and Wales, right? So if you are a person of Caribbean origin and your name starts with Mac, if it starts with Maxie, then you're on the people who suffered, because many have them surnames like Burke and things like this, and Blake and things like this, or Mac with a small c. Because what Cromwell did, he slaughtered them all, 600,000 men and women he deported from Ireland, and 100,000 children who remained orphans, right? Burnt the crops and starved them, right? Now we keep on hearing stories about, the Irish and the potato famine and this and that, but this is where we go wrong and we don't read. But you will get a shock just when the programs that I recommended to you, when you look at them, especially if you look at it on your TV, because that, unlike the phone, it gives you more options to look at than you're going to see, right? And this is the same system that they used with our people across Europe, because they're black all over Europe. Is the same trick they use to trick you with religion, right? It's the same system. It's nothing's changed. And this thing that happened with the black Irish of Jamaica and Barbados and the Americas, the same thing, the same system that they use, right? Is the precursor to what Britain went and did with the Aborigine in in Australia over 100 years later. The same system. But all you have to do is just read and it'll wake you up. And I have to tell you, for many of you, it's not going to make good reading. And then you wonder, you look at this, you wonder why our dialects in the Caribbean, certain words are similar to the Irish, innit? We don't say three, we say tree. So do they. There's many things in the dialect. And you know something, blacks, many years ago, bless his soul, he only just got buried last month. One of the traveller man. I remember I must have been about 17 and I had a good talk with him. And this is the shame for us as a people, because I'm sure now, thinking he got buried last month, right? A big traveller funeral, right? Kojak, right? Now, that man knew his history. We don't. We're the only people in the world that we're quite happy to just tag along, right? When there's things there that we know. I mean, there's things there that are hidden from us.
So was that Kojak telling you similar things to what you?
Yes, it's not just him one, but it's just because he passed away. He got buried last month, right? And I remember me and him used to sit down and have some good talks, and he's like, "Oh, H, you know, we got some similarities." And I'm just, you know, it just going one ear and out the other. But we're the only people that don't know who we are, right? And let me see, right? I'm going to read to you, right? This was an act. Because remember, Cromwell took over in 1653. 2 years later, at his bequest as the Lord Protector of England, he was the leader of England when the British went and run the Spanish from Jamaica. 2 years later. 1655. Right? Now, in 1657, an act for this is when he was taking 600,000 across to Barbados and Jamaica, and then to the Americas. An act, and this is an official act, an act for the attainder of the rebels in Ireland. This act is from 1657.
1657.
Children and kindred of persons attained without bail shall transplant themselves within 6 months and not to remain without license. Offenders to be apprehended and committed persons convicted shall be banished. Right? This rule does not apply to you if you were a Protestant on the 3rd to the 20th of October 1641. Only Catholics or Loyalists, and what they called Loyalists in them days were the Jacobites, because Charles I, who was beheaded, his father, King James, was a black king, was a Hebrew. He knew, that's why he translated the King James Version Bible, right? So, but King James, but King Charles I was beheaded because he wanted to go to Catholicism, and the British didn't want, the rest of England didn't want a Catholic on the throne, so they beheaded him. And his son was Bonnie Prince Charlie, who became Charles II, right? But when they beheaded his father and Cromwell died in 1658, they brought Bonnie Prince Charlie back from France and crowned him as Charles II. And even though he was a Catholic at heart, he just did the right thing. He ruled as a Protestant king, but he put people that were Catholics in power. And I think he was the first king to have an army resident just outside of London, which the English government didn't want. Right? So let's see now. And every description that you get of Oliver Cromwell, you'll find he too was a man of a colour, but they call him ruddy, they call him swallow, which is more yellow. He had a big broad nose as well, right? But I've got some other notes here for you. Let me see. Right, so Cromwell, he deported from England, Ireland, Scotland to Jamaica, Barbados, the Virginia, the Virginia, South Carolina, Maryland, and New England. Many dark-skinned Irish and Scottish people who were loyalists, meaning Jacobites or Jacobites, to King Charles I, Charles Stuart, a black king from 1649 to 1658. He deported from England, Ireland, Scotland, and Jamaica, Barbados, Virginia, South Carolina, Maryland, and New England many dark-skinned Irish and Scottish people that were both Catholic or converted Catholics from 1649 to 1658. So his problem was Catholics and Catholics.
Oh, okay.
Right.
So it's religion.
It's religion, it's pure religion. Description of Cromwell. The descriptions of Cromwell is muddy and sallow. Muddy equals foul with dirt or fine earthy particles, and sallow equals tinged with a dark yellow, having a yellow color or pale. That's according to the 1828 Webster Dictionary. All right. And as for earlier what I was saying, because I'm literally don't know. As for earlier what I was saying, we all know that that we know about I think they're called because I'm not brought up paper. Inequinos, which was a confederacy, 72,000, 50,000, 30,000 years ago. Confederates tribes, what the Western world called Indians. There wasn't Indians. Right now, this is why we get Nova Scotia and you get French speaking people in Canada. Right now, because these tribes were dragged from pillar to post first by the French, then the British. Right, because what was the money thing over there was beaver skin. It was for beaver skin, right? But then all these confederacy of tribes. Some was with the French, some was with the British, and then you had the settlers later on that came, you know, the English settlers that went to settle in America. So they were getting took three ways. And these people, the Inequinos, is what is the forerunner for all these Indian tribes that we know: the Sioux, the Apache, the Cherokee, the Choctaw, the Cree, the Navajo. Right? These are all the people. Now you see when the Indians.
So these are tribes from back in the day.
Yeah, the indigenous tribes.
Yeah.
Right. See the Taino as well, because the Taino intermarried with some of these tribes, and this is where over time, and they brought in some people from Euro-Asia as well. So over time, this is where gradually you got some of the Indians that had the dark skin, still dark skin, but long straighter hair, like European hair. Right? So just use your internet or whatever you have. I'll just explain because the Taino, even though they were in Jamaica as well, they were already as well in the Americas.
Okay.
And they intermarried with some of these tribes. Plus, there's people come over, Euro-Asians. So over time, that's where some of the Indians started to get their straight hair, right? But just use your internet, you'll see them.
So many people have no age. Like and subscribe for this one.
Like and subscribe to
share, yeah.
And share. Yes.
All right. The knowledge, yeah.
Yes.
All right, age.
And I've got, let me just tell the people, I've got all the lineup for you, but I've not been well or whatever, right? But I've got a one coming to you, the baddest man on the planet.
Yeah.
And when I say the baddest man on the planet, we will automatically think Mike Tyson because that's the name he came under.
Yeah.
But I have to tell you, Iron Mike, you did steal that name and that title. But I've got the baddest man coming to you.
All right.
Right.
All right.